Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about this fiasco that is going on in the state of Massachusetts, where they have ruled, at least in the trial court phase, now it's up on appeal, that a woman who ends up getting an engagement ring as a condition of a proposal can keep said engagement ring post the marriage being broken off. Now, I got to give credit to Nate, the lawyer, for bringing up this topic because I find it absolutely fascinating, because even though the answer in this particular case is very obvious and the law is very obvious, obviously you have a court system, or at least at the trial phase, that has decided, no, women's get special rights, special privileges, special immunities, and even if the law says X, Y, and Z, it doesn't matter because we're going to do 1, 2, and 3. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
And remind you that on Wednesday, October 23rd, I will be live in person in Lower Manhattan debating Joshua Eagle on whether or not libertarians should vote for Kamala Harris. Yes, that is the serious position that this individual is going to be taking. So go to the registration link in the top of the description if you can make it. It is free. Enjoy. Come. I would love to meet you. We'll have a great time.
Those stories that everyone will have an opinion on. A fight over an expensive engagement ring is now in the hands of the highest court here in Massachusetts. Thanks for staying with us. I'm David Wade.
And I'm Courtney Cole. Now, the big question is, who gets to keep that big old diamond ring if that wedding is called off?
So in the opening of this local news segment, they mentioned the price of the engagement ring. But I just want to make this 100% clear for everybody out there in the audience. What we're actually here to talk about is the principle. The price does not matter. But if you're curious, this engagement ring actually ended up costing the man $70,000. $70K he spent on an engagement ring from Tiffany's, which to me is absurd from top to bottom. My entire wedding cost was not $70,000, but this guy spent that on the ring, and for a woman that he wasn't all that sure about, because shortly after this, they ended up breaking up, and the woman is trying to keep the engagement ring. And they talk about this back and forth, and how, who gets to keep it is the real big question, but in reality, in actuality, there should be no question. It should go back to the person who gave the engagement ring, and I will explain why, both in principle and in terms of the law.
The ring is either yours or it's mine.
It's supposed to be a symbol of love and commitment, but now a $70,000 engagement ring has become a bitter battle between a former couple in a case that has made its way to the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court.
And award the engagement ring and wedding band back to Mr. Johnson.
According to court documents, Johnson bought the ring, one similar to this one, from Tiffany's in Boston, paying more than $70,000. Soon after, he called off the engagement because he says his bride-to-be was verbally abusive and thought she was cheating on him, which she denies.
She would have stayed. She would have stuck it out.
A trial court ruled in her favor, saying Johnson was at fault for calling off the engagement, and right now she gets to keep the ring.
So what you're seeing right here are clips from the argument before the Massachusetts Supreme Court that is making the case of whether or not this $70,000 ring should go to the woman who ended up accepting the ring, or it should go to the man. And it's important for you guys to understand that under normal, regular gift law, it's actually not that controversial of an issue. If you give a gift to somebody, then that gift that you've given to them is theirs. They own it no matter what. If they choose to return it to you, that is something that they can choose to do, but under the regular, ordinary terms of a gift, it is their property. So for those of you who are getting into breakups with your girlfriends and you're trying to get jewelry back or whatever back, the fact of the matter is that property is theirs, and honestly, in terms of ethics, I actually 100% agree with that. I'm not a big fan of this, give me back all the stuff that I gave you over the course of our relationship because now our relationship's over and therefore we're doing some take backsies. Nope, not interested in that. I think that's stupid. However, an engagement ring is something different and unique, and I will explain why.
Johnson appealed the decision, and a Massachusetts appeals court ruled in his favor. Now it's up to the SJC to decide whether Massachusetts should follow other states where engagement rings are returned to the giver if an engagement is called off, regardless of who is at fault.
So it's important for you guys to understand that there are 3 sets of standards, 3 sets of laws, 3 sets of precedents in terms of gifts that could be applied in this particular scenario, but there's only one choice that makes perfect sense that should be utilized in this engagement ring scenario, because unlike other gifts, this one is conditional on the idea that you are going to get married to the person who you receive the ring from. And this should be easy to understand, because if you were to say no, you won't marry that person, you would not then receive the ring from that person. It's the most most obvious thing that anybody could possibly understand. However, in some states, one of the things that they like to do is adjudicate fault, as if the breakup of a relationship is the equivalent to the contractual agreement that is a marriage, and in those particular cases, they try to pick and choose who gets to keep what, depending on who blew up the relationship. But in reality, in actuality, that's absurd, that's stupid, that's ridiculous, and it requires the court to micromanage relationships that aren't even marriages based on who can allege the most nasty allegation against the other person. Again, it is much more simple to say that if you give somebody something on the condition that they will follow through with something else, the moment that that something else is not followed through on, that property ends up getting returned. It is not like all the other types of gifts that you can give somebody. This one is very specific, it is iconic in our culture, and it just makes perfect sense. So of course, the lawyer arguing in favor of the man in front of the Massachusetts Supreme Court is an absolute idiot and totally butchered this.
Who gets to keep the ring if we move to a no fault? Because the ring has been transferred in some respect.
So the setup of this question is if they were to move to the sensible standard, which is if the relationship ends and the marriage is not followed through on, aka the purpose of the engagement ring, then the conditional giver of said engagement ring should receive it back. And then she ends up responding with, the reason this should happen is because it's the most equitable.
So that if the marriage does not happen, the purchaser of the ring gets the ring back.
Why?
It's most equitable, Your Honor.
Look, I understand that when you boil it down, equity is supposed to mean fairness, and I understand that the Massachusetts Supreme Court is, of course, the Supreme Court of the state of Massachusetts, one of the more left-wing states in the union, but it's not about equity, it's about logic, it's about rational thinking. Again, if you give somebody a gift dependent on an action, and then that action isn't completed, then obviously you should get that gift back. This is one of the very few circumstances where I'm in favor of a gift being returned back to the giver by law and enforced by law, and this is also the most sensible standard that you can have, because her being able to keep it just means that she could do whatever. If he decides that he doesn't want to marry her, or she decides she doesn't want to marry him, then she ends up getting the windfall from that, so that's a corrupt incentive. And the idea of having the judges adjudicate fault in the breakup of engagements is also asinine, ridiculous, and it will definitely lead to similarly situated people being judged differently based on the whims of the judge. My standard is clean. It's the standard in most of the country. I believe Montana and one other state just give the ring outright to the woman, which to me is just an absurdity on top of an absurdity.
Arthur DeMillo is an independent appraiser and jeweler.
So my best understanding would be if the condition hasn't been met of the engagement, in other words, if the condition no longer exists, then the ring needs to be returned.
So they asked a jeweler and appraiser, and for whatever reason, this guy is considered an expert on the laws of gift giving, on the laws of engagement rings, but I just want to add that he is correct in his analysis, but more importantly, this is also just logical and sensible. Again, if you accepted a gift on the premise that you would get married to that person, you can't turn around and then say, okay, well, I'm not going to get married, or if this person doesn't want to marry me anymore, I will not return said gift. And remember, if you were to get married, then get divorced, that would be included in your property, and you could do whatever the hell you want with said ring. But just imagine this isn't a ridiculously expensive generic ring from Tiffany's, and it's actually a family heirloom. This girl would be able to keep said family heirloom. That's absurd. That's insane. But this is the standard that the state of Massachusetts is opening up for women in these situations. And let's be real, the only reason they're considering subverting their own laws is because it's a woman in this scenario and the guy happens to be wealthy on the other side.
Shoppers in downtown Boston have varying opinions.
Oh, he called the wedding.
He called the wedding.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would give it back. Yeah, it's a lot of money.
So the news is trying to introduce the idea of fault to people that they're interviewing on the street, but the first guy they introduce this idea to says, oh, well, that might make it tougher, but honestly, she should give it back. She should give back the ring because this is not something that is outside people's normal rational thinking, and in general, people agree with the standard that I've laid out. Of course, they go to the next person, and we'll see how it goes with them.
I mean, she should give the ring back. It's not yours. There's no wedding.
Right there, woman on the street. She says, no, she should give the ring back. That there's no wedding, then you don't get to keep the engagement ring. Obviously, that doesn't make any sense at all. And honestly, if you were sad about it, then maybe you shouldn't have been so verbally abusive or whatever and made sure that this wedding ship ended up landing in port.
Well, I believe the ring belongs to her because he gave it to her as a gift.
So this lady right here is just 100% wrong. She's like, the ring is hers because she was given it as a gift and therefore. But honestly, now that I re-listen to it, now that I look at this wrong statement, I don't actually believe 100% that this woman was wrong. I think she might have even been repeating the question back to the local news. They just cut it off right after that because after they interviewed a bunch of different various people, they couldn't actually find somebody who's going to be 100% dead wrong on this issue. So they needed some ambiguity. So I'm going to give this lady a little bit of grace and say that maybe, just maybe, there's a chance that that's not actually her position.
She belonged back to the man.
Why do you say that?
Because it's canceled. Everything is over.
You see, again, almost unanimity on the streets of the state of Massachusetts to determine that the ring should go back to the initial giver and not should be taken by the woman who, of course, ended up not fulfilling her end of the bargain. Again, if this was regular jewelry, if this was an ordinary gift, even if this was an extraordinary gift like an expensive car or whatever, I would not have this position. But the fact of the matter is, built into the engagement ring conversation is the condition that when you accept this, when you say yes, you will follow through with the wedding. And for whatever reason, if that wedding ends up getting called off, you should give back the ring. That person should be able to try to recoup whatever losses he has from the ring, and he should be greeted with the terrible surprise that even though he spent $70,000 on said ring, when he tries to sell it back to the store, he will only get like $15,000 because obviously diamonds are a big scam that we're not even going to talk about right now. But you guys know where I'm coming from with this. If you know, you know.
The decision now lies in the hands of the Massachusetts SJC. No word yet on when a ruling is expected. In Boston, I'm Paul Burton, WBZ News.
All right, we said everyone would have an opinion. What do you think?
Listen. I'm going to give you my TV family version here.
Yeah.
It was a gift. You do not go back to ask for the gift back.
Yeah.
The circumstances are unfortunate.
Yeah. You know what I would do? Cut the ring right down the middle. Both get half.
So then we get to the real person who actually is in favor of the woman stealing this ring, and that is this local news lady who just says it was a gift, not understanding any of the nuances of the situation, not understanding the difference between a regular ordinary gift, which is true and factual, her position in 98% of circumstances, and a conditional gift, and she says you should steal the ring, and then the guy ends up joking around about how you should cut the ring in half as a joke because he's trying to have some fun with this particular segment. But I just want to point out that this local news lady, very bad lady, very bad person. Don't trust her at all. She's got that scammer energy, and we all have to take note of the fact that she's super sketch in that regard. Now, of course, I want to open up this question to you guys out there in the audience, and I really want you guys to understand and think about the difference between a regular gift, which again, when you give it, it is gone, it is not yours. A conditional gift, which I think an engagement ring by definition falls under. And I also want you to think about this idea that they're trying to introduce, where there's fault in a breakup of an engagement, where you have judges determine who was the bad one in the relationship and really rationalize on whether or not you think that that standard is applicable in these particular cases, even though I'm sure a bunch of left-wing idiots would argue that that's more equitable to have somebody judge the parameters of the breakup. Again, let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support review the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about this engagement ring fiasco. Till next time.